Welcome back to LifeRadio.tv. My name is Itari Rogers, pastor of Ruti in Penn Baptist Church here in Mbarara. And today we are in the program of prophecy updates. And in this program, I bring to you the news around the world that affect the church or affect the religion. So in today's broadcast, all I want to do is to discuss National Religious and Faith Organizations policy in Uganda. This is a proposed policy or a proposed law that is about to take the shape in this country. So we want to discuss it. So the title of this broadcast is National Religious and Faith Organizations Policy in the Light of the Bible. In the light of the Bible. That's what we're talking about. So once this policy becomes a law in Uganda, it will ensure that all religious and faith-based institutions are registered with and licensed by the office of the president. That's the state, to be precise. Number two, all pastors and church leaders or religious leaders are formally theologically trained by the state. That is to say, they must be educated in a state-established educational institution and also have to be certified or approved by the state in order to operate as a pastor or evangelist or what, as you know. Then number three, all pastors or religious leaders must preach and support government programs like wealth creation program, like NADS program, all these. Actually, there are NRM programs because we are under the government of NRM. So basically, you will have to preach the message of the state alongside the message of religion. So that's what the policy is all about. The next point that the law will be tackling is all religious institutions must register under a larger organization that will supervise them and report to the state. That's it. Then lastly, all the sermons preached in the church and all the faith activities will be monitored and regulated by the state. That's what this policy is all about. Now, have you noticed any problem here? Let's continue. This is what the policy proponents say, the proponents of this policy. This is what they say. They say that there will be no extreme criminal activities associated with religious leaders, okay? So they use an example of Chibwetere. Chibwetere, one of the cult leaders in Kanungu who butchered people, and the story is not entirely substantiated, but that's the guesswork of the educated. So they say we will eliminate that. They normally quote and mention extreme activities to justify their ambitions to come up with this policy. So the reason they readily give is to eliminate self-styled pastors and bishops and church leaders and prevent such activities where the church members are manipulated and exploited by their leaders. That's what they are trying to eliminate, and that's the reason they put on front. Then also they say the people of God will not worship human beings, they will worship only true God. That's one of their reasons. So that means they are jealous for the true God, because all emerging churches worship idols in some sense. So they want to regulate and redirect worship to their one and true God.
Message also revealed that the policy is designed to prevent the manipulation and exploitation of believers and also make religious leaders answerable for any questionable actions.
Churches, mosques, so these different faiths have actually manipulated and exploited. They are exploiting and manipulating the communities, and government cannot keep quiet. Government has to wake up and block the manipulation. All this you are seeing that is done, that parliamentarians were bothered of, is done in the name of manipulation. And you know, with manipulation, you cannot take a pastor to court.
He also scoffed at the recent action of believers kissing the shoes of Pastor Mbonye, which he called an abuse of freedom of worship. However, on NTV's Thursday talk show On the Spot, some of Pastor Elvis Mbonye's followers came out to defend his actions.
When Elijah is taken up to heaven and they notice that the spirit of Elijah is on Elisha, who was one of them previously, they went and bowed down with their face to the ground before him. Were they worshipping? No. There are so many instances in the Bible where people bow down and it's not worship. King David, before he became king, bowed down to Saul with his face to the ground. It is Abraham was met by 3 people. He bowed down to them when they came and told him his wife was going to give birth to a child. So this is all ignorance of the scriptures.
Defeat that idolatry because
So that's what the proponents of this emerging policy are saying. Those are the reasons.
Need to be very cautious and defeat that idolatry, because it takes away people's expectations from God, and they begin worshiping people.
Defeat that idolatry.
The purpose is to defeat idolatry. Believe me, this is a spiritual war. Remember that those who crucified Jesus, the reason was idolatry. It's one of the main reasons they crucified him. So if anyone pretends to regulate worship and begins to call the other faith idolaters, or people who worship different gods, then you know that there is some evil coming. So I'm trying to help you understand that this is a spiritual war. There's a spiritual war going on here in our country. Please be watchful. Let's listen to the words of Canon Reverend Aaron Mwesigye, the Director of Ethics and Integrity, the one who is pushing this policy to regulate worship.
It's a way of worshiping people instead of worshiping God. So what is happening, like what we saw in Koloro recently, Elvis Mbonye being kissed, is like the one in Chivare, as far as Obusobos is concerned, is like, because Obusobos is a god himself, is like the one that happened in Kanungu.
Let's look at the dangers of such a policy and the biblical solution. Because remember, we are looking at this policy, the National Religious and Faith Organization's policy, in the light of the Bible. So we are going to look at the dangers of such a policy and also the biblical solution that they should have implemented instead of trying to legislate or make a policy that perhaps will not work. So first of all, this policy is designed by 2 priests of the established religions in Uganda, namely Reverend Father Simon Peter Rukodo and Reverend Canon Mwesigye Aaron. So these 2 individuals are priests of the top religions, established religions. Now think about that. Think about that for a moment. Reverend Canon Mwesigye Aaron is a priest of the Anglican Church, or the Church of Uganda, as they call it here in Uganda. Then Simon Peter Rukodo, who is no longer alive, but he was the founder or the formulator of this policy, is a reverend. He's called Reverend Father. He's a priest in the Catholic established religion in this country. So those are the people who are designing and pushing, because it seems Reverend Canon Mwesi Aaron is started where Simon Peter Rukodo stopped. So they are pushing this policy into the parliament. And also, I want to mention that these two individuals actually worked in the same government position, which is the minister or director of a ministry called Ethics and Integrity. Okay? So they are leveraging the powers of their office to push this policy into the law in Uganda. So now, you ask yourself, is that possible? Yes, it is. The Reverend Canon Mwesi Aaron is still the director of the Ethics and Integrity Ministry, and the officer in charge of religious affairs in the office of the president. So then we ask ourselves, why is that so? But the answer is on the surface. This established religion's intention is not hard to guess. It is the ambition of the big established religion to suppress that which they call new and emerging religions. But in order to do that, they must leverage the powers of the state to crucify the new message with its messenger. That's what it's all about when you look into it with a critical eye. So it's not hard to determine what is going on here. So now, there is a short story that I want to tell you in a form of a tale. So I have called it a tale of two religions. Listen carefully to this tale of two religions, because I'm going to use it as an example in the discussion and in the presentation of this subject, the national policy for religious and faith organizations in Uganda. So, a tale of two religions. Almost all wars in this world are stemmed in the fact that there are two religions on the planet. So this is the first religion, a powerful, popular, precedent, major, and larger, with a lot of followers religion, but in most cases, the false one and a fake one. So I have named it in this story as a dominant religion. I'm going to use that phrase, dominant religion, to refer to this religion which is always powerful, dominant, popular, traditional, accepted. Another word for it is Catholic, because Catholic means accepted, universally accepted. Then also, there is another religion which is always a minor, informal, less popular, seemingly weaker and non-traditional, but in most cases, it's the true religion with a few subscribers. So those are the two religions in the world. I'm not talking about the names of denominations. I'm talking about a general picture in the world about these two religions. So these two religions are always at war. One is always at enmity against the other. And alongside these two religions, there is a state. There's something called state, which is neutral. Okay, it has nothing to do with these two religions unless something happens that we are going to cover in this subject. So in most of the cases, the greater religion seeks favor of the state. Remember, the state is inherently neutral in position. So the greater religion or the larger religion or the popular, the dominant religion, always seeks favor of the state. And it is always ready to manipulate and leverage the power of the state in an event that the state succumbs to the ambitions of it. And what's the purpose? To suppress the lesser religion, the enemy. Because the lesser religion is always an enemy of the greater religion. Okay? Or to get rid of it completely. In the normal state of things, the state is inherently neutral, as I have just mentioned, which is its ordained and proper position. But in all cases, the state, due to consistent manipulative requests, especially by the established religion, favors either of the religions, and then the war accelerates. That's the tale of the two religions. I'm going to show you some examples of these two religions throughout the history of the world. Now, the basis for the enmity between these two religions is the fact that one of the two religions represents darkness and the other represents light. That's very simple. That's why there is always enmity between these two religions. When you see darkness, that means there is no light there. Because the light and the darkness, they cannot coexist. Those are the two things in the world that cannot exist at the same time, in the same place. They cannot occupy the same place at the same time. So that's what represents the enmity of the lesser religion against the greater religion, and vice versa. So the basis for this enmity is that fact. One religion represents darkness and another represents light. Or the light represents the religion. So the light here represents the truth. When we say the light, especially in the Bible, when the Bible says the light, it means the truth. And when it says the darkness, it means deception, lies, and evil. Because evil rotates around deceptions and lies. So these cannot agree, and hence the continuous enmity. They will always be at enmity, always, until the end of the world. So let me give you some examples. In the story of Cain and Abel, the dominant religion, that is Cain's religion, eliminated the minority religion, that is Abel's religion. That story is in Genesis chapter 4. Cain was dominant. He was the elder. He was the firstborn. He had all these privileges. So he did not want Abel to practice the minority religion. He wanted him to be on the side of the dominant religion. And Abel said, no, I have to be right. I have the right to decide the way I want to worship, what I want to worship, so I'm not going to be in your religion. And then Cain decided to eliminate, that is to kill, okay, to wipe out the small religion, the religion of the minority. Then in another story in the Bible, in the story of Haman and Mordecai, if you remember in the book of Esther, I'm going to take you there. The dominant religion's aim was to completely wipe out the lesser religion, the religion of the minority. The dominant religion of Haman strategically leveraged the power of the state by deceiving the state that there was a political problem found in the subscribers of the minority religion. If you remember the story well, if you don't remember, let me take you through. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. So Mordecai refused to worship Haman. Haman was not God, but he was this dominant religion that wanted to dominate the lesser religion. Verse 8, that is Esther 3:5. That's the verse that I have read. And now I'm going to Esther 3:8. The Bible says, and Haman said unto the king Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of the kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. So Haman is seeking to eliminate or to dominate the religion of the Jews. And this just started when Mordecai shunned and refused to bow down before Haman. This had nothing to do with the religion, with the state. It was a religious conflict. So, according to the above verse that I have just read, the real issue between Haman and Mordecai is Mordecai's refusal to bow down or to worship Haman. That's the truth of the matter. So that has nothing to do with the state of Persia. And it is not a political problem actually. Yeah, because as long as Mordecai does not violate any law of the state has no problem with Mordecai. So he had to modify it. Haman did bring it to the king in its original version, telling the king that Mordecai has refused to bow down to me, because that would not make sense. Why do you want him to worship you or to subscribe to your religion? So he had to modify the real issue and by way of manipulation, make it a problem for the state. He had to make it a political problem. Okay? In order to leverage the power of the state to satisfy his grudges or his ambitions, which is to dominate other religions. Okay? So, how did Haman want the story to end? Look in the scripture, verse 9 of Esther chapter 3. If it please the king, in other words, if it pleases the state, let it be written that they, as the minority religion, may be destroyed. So he wants them to be destroyed. Now, the first intention was not to destroy them. It was that they worship him or they subscribe to this dominant religion. But when they refused, now that leads to another step in the enmity and the war. Now they have to be destroyed. But good enough, they haven't turned the things around and the state discovered that it was being manipulated and there wasn't any political problem. The state learned that just a member of the dominant religion was a problem himself and therefore causing all other problems in the country, and the state dealt with him, with Haman, justly. In verse 10 of chapter 7 of the book of Esther, it says, so they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified. So you see, the king had no problem with the Jews or with this minority religion. But he was manipulated to legislate against them. Okay? By giving him false information to justify the law. Then later on he discovered what was going on. So that's why I'm telling you, the dominant religion is always at war with the minority religion, and in most cases they want to involve the state. That's why we have this national policy for religious and faith organizations, because it's not the problem of the state. It's the problem of the dominant religion. I think you are with me there. In the third case, that is the case of Daniel, who subscribed to the minority religion. He was thrown in the den of lions. So here also, the powerful members of the dominant religion fabricated the justification for their ambitions in order to dominate the minority religion or eliminate it. So the first attempt is to dominate. So, but the lesser religion doesn't always want to be dominated also. Why? Because it subscribes to God himself. And God is bigger, by the way, than any religion, whether it's a dominant one or whatever. So basically, this is what the members of the dominant religion, in the case of Daniel, in Daniel chapter 6, this is what they did. They deceived the state that the minority religion is the agitator to the state and a political problem, so that the state would hate the minority religion and legislate against them and eliminate it, so that the dominant religion can flourish without any enemy. When you go to Daniel chapter 6 verse 5, it says, "Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God." Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king and said thus unto the king, "King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors and the princes and the counselors and the captains, have consulted together to establish a royal statute. A royal statute, that's the law. And to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, say of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king," that's verse 8, "establish the decree and sign the writing," that's the legislation, "that it be not changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. Wherefore King Darius signed the writing and made the decree." So verse 9 of Daniel chapter 6 tells us that King Darius signed the writing and made the decree. That is legislating, making a law. Meaning that the state legislated and made a law in the whole empire based on the grudges of some prominent members of the dominant religion. Just grudges, personal, or let's say religious, because this is religious, okay? So they were against one member of the minority religion, and they had to use manipulation to tell the state so the state can legislate against the wishes and the norms of the minority religion. That's what happened. And what was the basis for the grudges, by the way? In Daniel chapter 6 verse 3, tells us that Daniel had an excellent spirit. So this is what we call envy. So this one had an excellent spirit. And these members of the dominant religion, instead of copying him or imitating him or learning from him, so they just want to make him fall. That's what they want. So this means that compared to the spirit of the dominant religion, the minority religion was better, and there was advancement and expansion of the new and emerging religion, which is always the minority religion. Its members are being promoted into positions of influence in the state. So the world would still be a better place with excellence in spirit. But the dominant religion hates that because it is always against the religion of minority. So it's the excellence and promotions that sparked jealousy in some members of the dominant religion, that they started looking for a fault in a member of the minority religion. But when they failed to get a fourth, they had to create one by manipulating the state to make the registration, which is nonsensical. Because why do you want people to worship the king? The king himself did not ask that. But they're saying, oh, let people worship the king, because they were sure that Daniel would not worship the king. So the minority religion always sticks to the truth. They are the truth seekers, but the dominant religion are the order of the purity. Yeah, that's how I can term them. So they had to make it a political problem by giving the state the false information to get it to do what they want. Okay? Just to defeat their religious opponents, which really, in the end, affected everyone in the country. Because that happened. King Darius of the Persians and Medes made a legislation that all people in the world must worship me for 30 days. And notice how clever the dominant religion in this area is. Because what they do, they look at the area where the state would easily succumb to their request. Because yes, the king also would want also to be worshipped. That's clear. But it's far away in his mind that he can legislate for worship. So these people now, they are targeting where the state is weaker. Okay? When the state has this loophole, that's where the dominant religion wants to come in. Okay? So, the dominant religion, the established religion, hates the emerging religion. The order of the purity hates the seekers of the truth. So the story ended in the event that the Babylonian state found out that the truth and the basis of the conflicts was not a political issue, and it had to deal with those criminals justly. Because in verse 23 of Daniel chapter 6, the Bible says, then was the king exceeding glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because even God protected the minority religion, because he believed in his God. In verse 24, and the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, falsely accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives, and the lions had the mastery of them, and break all the bones in pieces, or ever they came at the bottom of the den. So that's how the state, once discovered that the dominant religion was just manipulating the state to do evil, that's how the state should deal with those members of the dominant religion. So, in the story of Jesus and the Pharisees, this is the fourth story as an example of how the established religion is fighting the new religion. They call it new, non-traditional, emerging religion. So, in the story of Jesus and the Pharisees, the dominant religion, Pharisees, Sadducees, scribes, and Herodians, they crucified the minority religion by the hand of the state. That is to say, Roman officials. Again, by deceiving that Jesus and his followers were the enemies of the state. I mean, was Jesus an enemy of the state? Never. Actually, he said, my kingdom is not the kingdom of this world. I have nothing to do with your state. I was never an enemy So, the minority religion has never been the enemy to the state. Never. You say, how about the dominant religion? We are going to see how the dominant religion first manipulates the state. If the state doesn't succumb to the manipulation, the dominant religion agitates the state. We are going to see it here in the example of Jesus and his followers against the established religion of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So let's look at John chapter 18, verse 28. John 18, 28. Then led they of the dominant religion, Jesus, the leader of the minority religion, from Caiaphas and the hall of judgment. And it was early, and they themselves went not into the judgment hall, lest they should be defiled, but that they might eat the Passover. Verse 29. Pilate then went out unto them and said, what accusation, listen to that question, what accusation bring ye against this man? That question has a lot to it. In most cases, the minority religion is not a problem. They have committed no crime. So that's why the state is asking, Pilate is asking, and Pilate represents the state here. He was a Roman governor, he was not religious. So he's asking, what accusation bring ye against this man? Look at their response in verse 30 in John chapter 8. They answered and said unto him, if he were not a malefactor, we would not have delivered him unto thee. So, they haven't answered any question here. They just repeated what they have been chanting. A malefactor is the same as a criminal. The terminology means criminal. So he's asking, what crime has this man committed? They are saying, he is a criminal. That's why we have brought him to you. He's a criminal. And the guy is like, okay, I am not saying he's not a criminal, but what crime? Because it's a crime that constitutes the criminality. So he's asking, what accusation? What is it that he has done? I say, well, you know, you believe us, he's a criminal. The question is, why are they not stating or presenting the crime? Let me first read. If he were not a malefactor, we would not have delivered him up unto thee. In other words, the fact that we have brought him to you testifies of the crimes, even though we don't have a specific crime that we can mention. But you know he's a criminal. You just crucify him. He's just a criminal. So why? Let's look at the reason. In this passage, we see the Pharisees, prominent members of the dominant religion, are accusing a member of the minority religion before the state. But when the governor asks the accusers of the crime committed by this member of the minority religion, they failed to mention the crime committed. Why? They simply repeated that Jesus was a criminal, a malefactor. That's it. So in other words, what we say is a crime is a crime. When we say that so and so is a criminal, he is. You don't need the evidence. We are the dominant religion. You crucify them. Okay? So, basically, as I conclude, what they are saying is this. We have criminals who have not committed any crime. So the criminality is in the enmity, it lies in the enmity that is always between the minority religion and the dominant religion. It's not that the minority religion has committed any crime. No, the criminality lies in the other, in the enmity that I have mentioned to you in the beginning of this. So, in psychology, this is called cognitive dissonance. That's what you call it in psychology. Cognitive dissonance is when you know something but you don't want to admit it. That's cognitive dissonance in psychology. You know that something is true, but because of your emotions, in other words, you can't believe it. You're seeing something, you say, I can't believe my own eyes, or I can't believe my own ears, or my own brains. I'm not ready to accept this fact, even though it is a fact. So in psychology, it's called cognitive dissonance. So here is the reason why they did not want to mention the crime. And I will also tell you how they were able to convey to the state that there is a crime committed, but they would not mention it. Why? Because it's not mentionable, it's not substantiable. You cannot say this is the crime. But there is a way how they manipulate the state for the state to believe that in some way or another there is a crime committed. I'm going to show it to you here. And that is what is happening in Uganda with this policy of religious and faith organizations. National policy for religious and faith organizations. That's what is going on here. And that's what I was trying to teach you here. So the reason they don't want to mention any crime, when you mention a crime, you must produce evidence to prove the commission of that crime. Yeah, that's how the law works. Okay? So, in other words, if they say that Jesus killed somebody, they have to produce the evidence. And since Jesus hasn't killed anyone, therefore there is no evidence, and they have nothing to produce when they say that Jesus has killed somebody. So, in that situation, they are avoiding to mention any crime. So they use ambiguous terms, they chant things, they make noise, they agitate the state, so that they can come to what they want. So you must produce evidence. If you say the crime was committed, you don't just say the law does not operate that way. That when you say, well, so and so is a criminal, then the state will say, how do we know? Because the state is there to substantiate the criminality and therefore penalize the criminal. Now, because they know that if they mention a crime, they must produce evidence to prove the commission of that crime. So the only way to bypass that is to keep chanting, he is a criminal, he's a criminal, he's a malefactor, many times with a loud voice. And what's the point? To put the state on pressure. Okay, because they want to leverage the power of the state, but they have no substantiable way of doing it, so they must create chaos. Okay? And use vague terms. He's a criminal without a crime, you know? So it doesn't make sense in the end, but they have to do it. So because of so much noise, even without the evidence, so much noise makes the state feel like that there is something wrong going on. Because the responsibility of the state is to govern the affairs of the people. So they want to see peace and stability. So when you make noise and continue making noise, even though there is no evidence, the state says, okay, let's intervene. And that's what the dominant religion wants. And that's how it manipulates the state to suppress the religious opponent. So here, what they do, that's what we call propaganda. The religious propaganda is intended to get the state to do something requested or desired by the dominant religion. So it's another way of manipulating the state. In case the state says, no, we don't see any problem, they say, okay, let's show you that there is a problem by making noise, by creating chaos, things like that. So when you ask the proponents of religious and faith-based organizations' policy, mostly the members of the dominant religion, the crimes the new churches have committed, when you ask them, what are the crimes? They chant manipulation and exploitation. These new churches, these new pastors manipulate their followers and exploit them. That's what they put on the front. So let's examine that. They emphasize that the members of the minority religion manipulate and exploit the citizens of this country. If you ask them, who manipulated who? They say, well, manipulation. They keep chanting manipulation and exploitation, but you ask them the evidence. They will repeat chanting manipulation and exploitation. So the real issue here is a spiritual war between the minority religion and the dominant religion. That's the real issue. You say, aren't there people in the minority religion who manipulate others? That's okay. That's okay. Why? Because even in the dominant religion, there are people who manipulate others. Because manipulation and exploitation are vague terms that you cannot legislate against. So, in order to help a member of the community in the event where he's manipulated, you ask him how he was manipulated, by who, when, and how. If they are able to explain it substantially, then you deal with the criminal, because in that event, then there is substantial evidence. But manipulation and exploitation, as those terms are presented, they mean nothing. They're just abstract ideas. Manipulation, okay. So who manipulated who? Is there someone who came to the state complaining, oh, I was manipulated? Okay. If you were manipulated, how? How were you manipulated? Oh, somebody took my things. Oh, that is stealing. So now they go for the thief, because that law exists in the country. Oh, I was manipulated. Okay, how? Somebody told me a lie. Okay. They say he's a deceiver. He intentionally gave false information. Okay, there is a law to deal with that. But you cannot just say, let's legislate against manipulation. How? So, when you insist asking them the crimes or the mischief the new or the minor religion has committed, for which they demand a new legislation, I want you to take note that the legislation in Uganda for religious and faith organizations ensures training and certification or regulation and monitoring for all members of the clergy. That's what the policy is all about. So there is this element of training. Can you imagine the state training the church? I mean, can you imagine? How can the state train the church? Huh? It's like when the church tries to train the state, to educate the state as to how the state should operate. That thing cannot work. So basically, when you insist asking them, they mention the criminal activities that have been done in the past by some individuals who they did not deal with. Okay, so they mentioned Chibwetere, who butchered people in Kanungu almost 30 years ago. That religion started in, it seems, in 1989, and it ended in 2000 when they butchered those people. So they used that incident and they put it on the front. So, well, Chibwetere manipulated and exploited, and so was it because the Uganda government lacked the law to work on Chibwetere? No, that's not the truth. They say, oh, they are hunting Chibwetere. And actually, the story of Chibwetere is also, it has a lot of propaganda to it. I will show you. So, propaganda is when part of the information is presented as a whole information. That's what we call propaganda. Because with partial information, you cannot understand the whole picture, and therefore when you make a judgment, that judgment is based on partial information, which may lead the judge to make a wrong judgment because he doesn't have the complete information. So that's what is called the propaganda. Propaganda is when you get part of the information and present it as the whole information. So, for example, they will tell you what Chibwetere did. Of course, he banned people in the year 2000. That's what he did. But they won't tell you, you won't hear them tell you who Chibwetere was. In other words, they are giving you that partial information. Who was he? Think about it. Who was Chibwetere? Because who and what are the two stones that will lead you to another stone of why. Why did he ban the people? You cannot know why until you know who. Who was he? So they will tell you Chibwetere banned people, yes, but who was Chibwetere? They can't tell you the whole story. Actually, the group that died in Kanungu on 17th March in the year 2000 was by then under the leadership of Reverend Father Dominic Katarbahu, who studied for a doctorate in theology at Los Angeles Seminary in 1980s. So this was a different person. It wasn't Chibwetere. Another leader of the group was called Father Joseph Kasaplan. Those are Catholic fathers, priests. Yes, they say we excommunicated them, but who are they now? Did you train them? Yes. Did you certify them? Yes. Did you approve them to go and work before they were excommunicated? Yes. So, who were they? There is another man called John Kamagara and a lady called Credonia Mwerinde. Chibwetere had died on 26 July 1999 according to his wife Teresa. That's what the story says. Okay? And this story is substantiation because if the wife said so, now who is closer to Chibwetere than his wife? So Chibwetere, you won't hear that Chibwetere had gone to Rome and met Pope, and he was blessed by Pope, and he came with a certificate signed by Pope recognizing the Pope's special blessings on Chibwetere. They won't tell you that story. Oh, Chibwetere is just an untrained the new emerging religious leader. No, he was part of the established religion. So, the members of the established religion, when they do evil, that evil now is put on the members of the minority religion. It is funny, and that's what is called propaganda. Because, yes, so when you go deep into the story and ask, why was Father Dominic Reverend Father? To be Reverend Father, you are higher up there. Why was he excommunicated? They won't tell you those reasons. Okay? They won't tell you. They will ban people. So now you say, Chiwetere didn't ban people. No, he banned them. He killed them. He's a criminal. And that's why they are hunting him. And when they get him, he will answer. Okay? So I'm not saying he wasn't a criminal. All I'm saying is, who was he? And why we are not told the part of the story of who Chiwetere was. That's my concern. So, these priests, these all Father, Reverend Father Dominic Katarbabo, Father Joseph Kasaprali, Father John Kamagara, and Father Chiwetere, all of these were Catholic priests. They were running from the Catholic religion for what they saw there. And they were misguided, of course, because being a Catholic, to me, you are misguided. So these were all the Catholic priests, those who led that group that was burnt in Kanu. But they won't tell you they were Catholics. No, they won't tell you that. They will say, he was a new church leader, that we don't know where he got his training. No, Chiwetere was trained, certified, and ordained, together with Katarva Dominic, together with John Kamagara, together with Kuredonia Mwerinde. All of them were part of Catholic religion. So, but when they saw visions, the story is quite long. When they saw visions and they told their bishops, we have seen the vision, the bishop said no, because the Pope should have told us that vision, so your vision is not right. So, and if you insist with the vision, telling us the story of the vision, we will excommunicate you. And these people, they defied their authorities. And they started another version of Catholicism. So, by the way, what was the core part of the message that Chiwetere and his group and all these Catholic priests, what was the message that they were pushing? What was the message that they were preaching? It was the message of worshiping Virgin Mary. That's a Catholic thing, right? Because Catholics worshiping Mary, Virgin Mary? Yes. So they started with a movement called Marian workers, okay, or the Marian soldiers. You know, in Catholic, there are many groups, many groups. For us, we worship Mary. For us, we worship Joseph. For us, there are many groups there. So this was one of those groups called the Marian Workers Movement. Marian in reference to Mary. So they were workers of Mary. That's what the message of Chiwetere was, or Chiwetere's group actually. So, the story of Chiwetere is quite long, and it is unclear, by the way. That's what I have not mentioned. The story is unclear. Why Chiwetere was excommunicated? For me, I heard that he had visions. You know, it goes deep into Catholicism. And then Chiwetere had to come up with his own way, together with these other Catholic priests, and then they banned people. And now, the Catholic religion, or the dominant religion, wants to put that bad name on the either Pentecostal or any other non-traditional religion. And again, you cannot use what Chiwetere did as an individual, which is committing a crime, to stop me from exercising my fundamental rights to worship and serve God the way I believe. Okay? I am not Chiwetere. Okay? You deal with the Chiwetere, because what if one of the members of the dominant religion commits the same crime or such a crime? What happens? So will you pull the whole religion down? Let me give you an example. If a person kills another person, what do you do? As a state or as the community, what do you do? You legislate that no person should ever come near another person because they may kill them. Is that how you legislate? No. The purpose of the legislation is to penalize the criminals. But there is no way you can stop criminality. If there was such a way, okay, of stopping people killing others, that way would have been used before we were even born. But there's no way you can do that. The only way to do that is to punish the criminals. After the evidence has been brought, then you penalize them, you punish them. When you punish them, so these other people fear to kill others. That's the purpose. That's the purpose behind the law. Okay, the purpose cannot stop the purpose of the law. The law cannot stop the criminality. No. If it was to stop it, it would have stopped it many years back. It cannot. What the law does is to punish the law breakers, and then other people fear to do what? To commit the same crimes. So, but when a crime is committed by Chiwetere, and then you say, oh, you may also do as Chiwetere did. So, I'm banning you, or I want to monitor you, or I want to take your fundamental rights from you because there is a potential criminality in you. No, that's not how the law works. So, if the person kills another person, the only remedy is to heavily punish the killer. Now, in the case where the killer runs and escapes, what do? You tell other people, okay, we don't want to see you hanging around with another person because we have realized the potential in people that a person can kill another person. That's not how the world works. So if Chiwetere killed a person or burned people and ran away and escapes, the responsibility of the state is to hunt or to search for Chiwetere and find him and his group and punish them as the law says. But you don't now panic and say, oh, religious leaders will now ban their followers. You know what? How can you stop me from banning or killing other people? You can't. The only way that you can do it is to make sure that the criminals are punished. That's it. And that's how it's been done since the beginning of the world. And that's how it will be done until the end of the world. Because there is no any other way around. Okay, so another example, what if a bus makes an accident? Will you stop all other buses from operating? Now you would have killed the transportation industry. If you stop all the buses, or you say now the bus is allowed to take, because I'm monitoring and I'm realizing there's potential of a bus making an accident, so let's just employ let's allow only 2 passengers on each bus. Now, will the bus make profit? So you see, what I'm saying is, you cannot legislate against the ambiguity. No, you deal with the specific issues in legislation. So, I heard someone else mentioning the succumb, or Ruhanga Obusobozi board. They mentioned him in trying to push this policy. He said, oh, people worshipped Bisaka instead of worshiping God. Now, what is the problem with that? Did he force them? Oh, he manipulated them. How? He told them he was God. They believed him. When Jesus came and told the people that he was God, some believed him, some did not believe. What is the problem? That's why God gave us the freedom of worship. God allows the stupid people to live on this planet and intelligent people to live on the same planet. So you don't eliminate stupidity. There's no way to do that. The only way to eliminate stupidity is you let people, through their stupidity, they make decisions and do things against the law, and then the law punishes them. That's the only way. But you cannot say, well, all people in the world are going to be intelligent and are going to be good persons. We shall monitor them, we shall make sure that everyone is a good person. No, it can't happen. Even God cannot do that, because a human being is created with the fundamental right of decision making. Okay? He's fully independent in decision making. That's why you cannot legislate against the decision making. You just say, well, if you make such a decision which hurts other people, we shall punish you. That's it. So, by the way, Lusaka also was a long-serving Catholic cleric. He was a secretary for parish council. He was a choir master at Hima Catholic Diocese, among others. Therefore, he was a theologically, he was a trained Catholic clergy, okay? Or the Catholic leader. So, using these highly trained Catholic priests who had clashes with their hires and consequently formulated other versions of Catholicism, and then to use that fact to justify the legislation against the Bible and against the fundamental rights of freedom of worship, is idiotic at its core. In other words, they won't mention the crime. They will just keep chanting, they are criminals. Isaka is a criminal. Chiwetere is a criminal. So how? How? What crime? Deceiving a person, or what they call manipulation. In that process of manipulation, if the people being manipulated realizes it and reports it to the state with the substantial explanation of what happened and how it affected him and by who, that's when you deal with that. So, but they want to put the state on pressure so that they can get it to do something in their favor, which is to suppress truth. Okay, that's what they want. So, what's the reason? The reason they can't present a specific and clear, justifiable cause for the legislation they want in Uganda is that such a cause does not exist. There's no cause for legislating against the freedom of worship. Oh, I want to be seeing you when you are worshiping, and I want to be listening to you, and I want to control your worship. No, there's no such a cause for that. Even God allows the devil to continue deceiving the world. So do you think you are more intelligent than God? No. So because this is how the law works. And I'm not a lawyer, but at least I know some of the fundamental principles of the legislation process. And the reason for this is that the Bible itself, which is my field of expertise, is the book of law. The Bible is the book of law. It has all the principles of the statute and law development. So you have to have a justifiable cause to develop a statute or a law. Which is why in our examples, Haman, when he wanted a law that allows him to wipe out the minority religion, he had to present false information to the state or to the king in order to substantiate the cause for the legislation. So now, this is what the propaganda is all about. This is why in Uganda, the dominant religion is pushing this policy by bringing all the vague terms of manipulation, exploitation. We're trying to prevent that. How do you prevent manipulation? There's no way. So, the same thing where the enemies of Daniel, in Daniel chapter 6, they had to deceive the king in order to get him sign the law that they were sure Daniel would violate. Okay? And the law was, let all people, every living person, worship King Darius for 30 days. And they knew the minority religion wouldn't do that. So that's why they were doing it. So one of the indispensable principles of making a law is called the mischief rule, which seeks to determine the real intentions of the law. And by way of identifying and substantiate the problem that the proposed law is intending to solve, the mischief principle addresses the following questions. What problem or what is the mischief? What is the cause of developing this law? To develop a law, there must be a problem that law is intending to solve. That's the principle of mischief rule. So then number one is what problem? What is the mischief? Number two, is there any other law in the existing laws that can solve that problem? The reason for that element in the mischief rule is that the lawmakers or the rule itself, the principle of lawmaking, seeks to avoid attempts to solve non-existent problems. Because once you try to solve a non-existent problem, you are creating a problem. Yes, if you think, oh, I need the solution when there is no problem, then by looking for a solution, and trying to solve the non-existent problem, you are creating a problem. You are creating a problem there. So the mischief rule, in legal terms, seeks to avoid that, to create solutions that have no problems to solve. So those solutions will themselves become problems. So now, let's try to apply the mischief rule principle to what the dominant religion presents as a problem. They say that the mischief or the problem that this new law intends to solve is manipulation and exploitation. That's what is on the front. Now, the question is this: do we have existing laws that prohibit and penalize manipulation and exploitation in this country? The answer is yes. Now you say how? It doesn't specifically say manipulation. The reason it doesn't specifically state manipulation as far as the term is concerned is because manipulation is an abstract idea. It is not substantiable. Because yes, manipulation, what? What is manipulation? Because when you look at the definition of manipulation, it's vague. It's not something substantial. Because when you say manipulation, you need to mention who manipulated who. Because manipulation at its core is deceiving. Okay, because by definition, manipulation is defined as to influence skillfully, especially in an unfair manner. That's the definition of manipulation. So basically it is to deceive someone in order to take the advantage of him. That's the definition. So when you say manipulation, you must say this person manipulated this person in this way. That's when manipulation makes sense, in that explanation, in that context. But when you say just manipulation, it means nothing. It's vague, it's a vague term. It can mean anything. So, and the law-making principles do not allow making a law anyhow for anything, for generality. No. That's not how law works. So basically, the reality is that the manipulation and exploitation, those two terms are vague terms, and that's why they are pushing them, because the vague terms are used in processes of propaganda. When you are pushing something that you don't want people to know exactly what you are pushing, then you bring all these general things, so they are so that they can't see exactly what you are pushing. So actually the word manipulation is manipulative itself when you mention it as such, unless you explain the core, the substance, okay? So basically, the reality is you cannot legislate against manipulation. And that's why when you look at the laws in the countries, you go Uganda, Kenya, America, China, you won't find a law in the penal code or in the constitution which says this law prohibits manipulation and exploitation. No. It does not work. You have to explain what do you mean by manipulation substantially. You get my point? So that's what manipulation, the reason they present is vague, it is general, it does not fit into the law-making principles. The definition of exploitation is the action, okay? That's the action, or fact of treating someone unfairly in order to benefit from their work. So it has something to do with labor and work. So if I call you to work for me, and instead of giving you reasonable salary or reasonable wages, then I give you very little, that means I have exploited you. And those laws are there in countries, even in Uganda, okay, to deal with specific events or actions of exploitation. But you cannot say in general exploitation, because exploitation as a term represents many things. Okay, so you have to be specific in the law-making process. Okay, so let's look at some verses of the Bible and then conclude. Then said Pilate to the chief priests and to the people. Pilate represents the state here, and chief priests represent the dominant religion. I find no fault in this man. That's Jesus. Yes, you have brought him here, and you are chanting, he's a criminal, he's a criminal, he's a criminal. But upon my critical examination, I find no fault with this man. He's innocent. He hasn't committed any crime. Look at verse number 5. And they were more fierce. Okay? They were more fierce. That means they were furious. And they were angry because they had that state. He is a criminal. He is a criminal, and you are saying he's not a criminal. They were fierce. Against who? Against Pilate, against the state. Because this anger is intended to bring chaos and noise and agitate the state so that the state can do their bidding. Now, in their anger, this is what they say, saying, he stirs up the people. Listen to that vague term. He stirs up the people. How? Stirring is like bringing confusion. Okay? So how did he bring that confusion in the people? Because Jesus would teach people plainly. Jesus was not a confuser. He confused nobody. But this is what they are saying. He stirs up the people. Look at how they describe that. Teaching throughout all Jewry, beginning from Galilee to this place. So, teaching now becomes stirring people. Again, teaching, they are not mentioning what he's teaching because that would be now specific. That would be substantiated. Even Jesus would say, yeah, that's what I said. So they are trying to use vague terms to push propaganda. That's religious propaganda. That's the enmity between the dominant religion and minority religion. And even when the state says, I declare him innocent, I found no fault with this man, they become more fierce. And they say he stirs up people, he brings chaos. I mean, what chaos? Substantiated? No, they can't. But they keep chanting, we hate him. That is to say, we just hate them. That's what they mean. We just hate these new religions. Why? Because they show people that we don't teach the truth. And that's why these Pharisees were hard against Jesus. Not that Jesus did something wrong. Never. Jesus was a perfect man. Even when they slapped him on this side, he turned this side. So how can such a man commit a crime? Jesus never committed any crime. Jesus was a good person, by the way. He is the standard. He's the Son of God. He's God himself who came in the flesh to show people how they should live in this evil world. And Jesus lived in the world perfectly. He committed no sin. But these people hated him just because he was light. And the light was shedding on the darkness, making the darkness to go away. So these religious people had no business now, because their business is working with darkness. So when you push the darkness away, then they are mad at you. They hate you. So all they are saying is to say, we just hate this guy because he brings light and we represent darkness. That's what the dominant religion and the minority religion are always fighting for. That's how the Bible says. So what's the conclusion? Because the most important thing is what God says about such a situation. And that would be the conclusion. What does God say in this manner? When you go to Matthew chapter number 13, verse 24, the Bible says, another parable put he forth unto them, saying, this is Jesus speaking. This is the founder of Christianity. This is the Son of God. This is what he said in the parable. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came. I'm talking about the enmity, okay, between the two religions. The false religion, but the stronger, and the true religion, in most cases, the weaker. So, Jesus is saying in verse number 25, he says, but while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then has it tares? In verse 28 he said unto them, an enemy hath done this. The servants said unto him, wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, nay, lest while you gather up the tares, you root up also wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. My brothers and sisters, the harvest is not yet. It hasn't happened. It's not the time of the harvest. The legislation in Uganda about religious and faith organizations is not the harvest. The harvest hasn't happened. Let me continue. In verse 30. And in the time of the harvest, I will set the reapers, gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. That's the language of the beloved King James Version of the Bible. And bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. That's what the Bible says. So that is in the time of the harvest, not now. So this legislation, the new policy, the national policy for religious and faith organizations, is seeking to do something that is supposed to be done in the time of the harvest. Look at the meaning of the of the parable. Matthew 13:36, then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house. And his disciples came unto him, saying, declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, he that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. That's Jesus. The field is the world. Jesus sowed the good seed in this world, this evil world, by the way. The good seed are the children of the kingdom. The harvest, no. But the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world. And the reapers are the angels. Okay? The reapers are the angels. Not the government officials, not the state, not the dominant religion. The reapers are the angels, which is said by Jesus. Verse 41, the Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend. So, if something offends you in these days, don't bother with it. Just let it be. Why? Because we are not in the time of the harvest. Let me continue reading in verse 41. And them which do iniquity. So if Chiwetere does the iniquity, or any other person does the iniquity, or these Pentecostal people do the iniquity, okay, let them. Verse 42, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire, there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth, then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. So, back to the state. It's not your duty. I'm talking to the state now. It's not your duty to eliminate the tares from the wheat. And that's enough for you. Okay? That's the advice from the Bible. It's not the duty of the state. Yes, it's not even the duty of the dominant religion. But of course, since the dominant religion is an enemy to the minority religion, then perhaps they will engage in that. But the state, I beg you by the mercies of God, the state, Mr. State, don't involve yourself in the issue. Because in the end, there will be the judgment. So, who has ears to hear, let him hear. So in this passage of scripture, Jesus clearly teaches religious tolerance, as they call it politically. Religious tolerance is taught here in this scripture. If the proponents of the policy of the national religious and faith organizations policy are the good seed, let's say that they are the good seed, which was sown by the Son of Man, then they shouldn't be bothered by the existence and the operations of the bad seed, of the evil seed, which is the tares. Okay? So, this is the advice to the dominant religion now. If you are the ones who are right, then you have to tolerate others who are wrong, but not to eliminate them. If you try that, you shall be judged. And good enough, yes, you may be a dominant religion, but then there is God, and God is just. God does not take bribe. God is not jealous. God is not fierce. God is not corrupted. God is there, the ultimate standard of judgment. So, please, this is a piece of advice. Okay? Those that are the good seed were taught by the master to tolerate the tares. Can you tolerate the tares? Now you say, why did Jesus say, let the tares also remain? And what does the tares do in the field of wheat? It chops. It feeds on the food that the wheat should be feeding on. In other words, it reduces on the growth process. In other words, it is not for good. It's there to make to produce problems and to bring chaos. But Jesus said, let them be. So Jesus clearly told the religious tolerance. So the basis on which Jesus permitted the religious tolerance is clearly stated in verse 29. Let's go back to verse 29. It says, lest while you gather up the tares, you root up also the wheat with them. Listen. Listen very carefully. This is important. This is important. I'm talking to you who think that you are the good seed. Okay? Listen carefully. Whoever thinks that is a good seed, whether the dominant religion or members of the minority religion, whoever you are, that you think, oh, I'm the right. I'm the one who is right. Then listen. When Jesus said, don't pluck, don't pull the tares, the weeds out of the field, he says, perhaps as you pull those weeds up, the wheat seeds can also be pulled out. In other words, what he's saying is, you who have the ambitions of eliminating the tares, you don't know which one is a tare and which one is a wheat. You don't know that. So don't try. Let both of them grow. Now, what does Jesus mean here? Does he mean that he himself doesn't know the tares or the people who cause problems in the kingdom of God? No, of course, for him is God. He knows everything and everyone and every thought. So he's aware of the tares and what they are doing. But what he was trying to teach us here is that we should tolerate others. Because they may come to a point where they also realize that what they're doing is bad and repent and become the wheat. Because that's possible. That's the miracle. Okay? So, my brothers and sisters out there, that was the biblical perspective of the national, religious, and faith-based organization's policy that is being cooked in this country, Uganda. There's a lot to learn. And also, you say, what should we do? I was going to forget this point, but let me put it like this. The point, or what would be the action now to take by the minority religion, which is going to be suppressed by this policy? What should they do? That's something very important. What they do, first of all, they advise the state, because in most cases they are the seekers of the truth, and they stick to what they believe. So they should also advise the state. As what I'm doing, actually what I was doing here is to present to the state, look, this is a spiritual war. Okay? This is not the problem of the state. No, but there is propaganda and manipulations by the dominant religion to manipulate the state officials to think in their way so that they can suppress or eliminate the minority religion. So that's what I was doing here. That's the purpose of the presentation. So, what the minority religion is supposed to do, first of all, is to advise the state. Yes, it's our responsibility actually to pray and advise the state. Now, advice is not a command. You don't command the state. But at least you take your responsibility to advise them, to show them the truth. Because they also need to know the truth. And let me tell you, when the state realizes the truth, the state is always neutral. That's why in the Constitution of Uganda it says, the state will remain secular. Okay, the state will not adopt any religion or prefer any religion or be on the side of any religion. No, we are secular. And that's right. Some other people say that the law has no eyes. Okay, that's the state. The state has no eyes. Okay, because eyes will see one side and then perhaps fail to see another side. So be blind. Do what you are supposed to do. So we are supposed to advise the state. Number two, we are to stand strong, because I'm part of the minority religion, by the way. I don't subscribe to the dominant religion. Because I'm a truth seeker, I seek for the truth, and I preach the truth, and I teach the truth. I seek to be the right judge of the matter. I don't want to preach one-sided information. No, I want to present the truth so that you can learn. So one is to advise the state. Number two is to stand strong. Why? In all these cases and the examples I have given you in this presentation, God fights for the religion of the minority. Yes, in the case of Haman and Mordecai succeeded. Not because of his own power, but because God was on his side. Because the good side will always win. Yes, in the end, it doesn't win in the start or in the middle, it wins at the end. That's a good thing with the minority religion. God is on its side. But when you deal with God, you must admit that he's not a human being. He's not like, oh, you the minority, you go and fight the dominant one and be on top. No, actually, God wants the minority religion to be down. Okay? Why? Because God wants to eliminate the pride, okay, in his servants. So that's why the members of the dominant religion, when they are there, they have all this power, they are in the government, now the pride grows and then they start to break the rules of God himself. So we will always be, we who are of the truth, we will never be on the top until the time of the harvest. Because in the time of the harvest, the whole system of the world will change. In other words, the world will end as we know it. So we'll begin a different chapter. So there, the tares will be banned, okay? So we'll have no tares. And therefore, there will be no need of enmity. There will be no enmity then. Okay? That's what it's all about. So number one, advise the state. Number two, stay strong. Number three, which is the final one, make sure you are doing what you are supposed to do. What are you supposed to do? In most cases, the minority religion either fears or is ignorant of what it's supposed to do, and it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And then that gives the dominant religion the advantage now to fight you. But if you are to read the Bible, read it. If you are to preach the gospel, preach it. If you are to teach the people, teach them seriously. That's what God teaches seriousness. Be serious in what you are doing. And let me tell you, if you have been doing seriously what you are supposed to do, this policy would not have come up, because it is a nonsensical policy. It's idiotic. It's meaningless. It's not. It has no substance to it. It's just air. Okay? That's why they use vague terms like manipulation and exploitation. So what? What does that mean? Yeah? Who manipulates who, and why, and how, and when? Okay, so you see, in order for something to be a policy or a law, it has to make sense. This is a nonsensical policy. So these policies come up just because, in most cases, the minority religion has failed to do its part in the society. And in such cases, now the policy is to wake you up. So this policy is to wake us up so that we do what God commanded us to do. And let me tell you something else before I end. Eventually, this policy will pass and it will become a law. You say, is that a prophecy? Actually, it's a prophecy. That's why this program is called Prophecy Updates. It's a prophecy in the Bible. There is what is called the New World Order. The New World Order, or the government of the Antichrist, when it comes, it will try to reunite all religions to make it one religion, dominated by the government, by the state. So these are just precursors of what is coming. So eventually, sooner or later, this law will pass, and it has passed in different countries. So in Uganda, I think it will also find its way to becoming a law in Uganda. So now, at that point, what will the minority do? The Bible calls it defeat. The minority religion will be defeated in the physical, earthly sense. Okay? They will be defeated, like Jesus was crucified and his movement was scattered like that. So he was defeated in the eyes of the dominant religion, or in the eyes of the onlookers, right? But that's not a spiritual defeat. So when this law, when this policy finds its way into becoming a law in Uganda, the minority religion will be defeated. In the sense that you won't run a church or a religious institution in the acceptable way as we do today. Because today everyone can come up with a church and be a preacher. But at that time, you will preach, and then you will be beaten and imprisoned. That's what will happen. So it is coming. So therefore, I beg you by the mercies of God, you who are listening and watching, be strong in the Lord. Before that time, be doing what you are supposed to do. And that's it. That was national policy for religious and faith-based organizations. In the light of the Bible, this policy is coming soon to take shape as a law in Uganda. Take care. Keep watching. May God bless you.